Hello everyone, how you doing? It is the showstopper Mr. Leopard, and today I'm here to just do something very profound. So while I called the elections recently and said that unless something strategic and something major happens, including an act of God, then the election would actually go with Raila Odinga. And some people said, you know what, probably you are just an Zimio guy and you're here trying to hoodwink us with your nice brain. So let me show you that I'm actually a guru at this and I can twist it any other way around it. When I say twist, it means that I can actually call the shots and I can actually manipulate the process with information to the extent that if you apply my information as I have put it, then the end result will go the way I have said. So I want to twist it this other way around. And let me see whether the William Ruto guys will try to like me. Now, I want to help William Ruto today. And this is how I'm going to help him. And there's me, guys, please don't throw stones at me. You don't pay me anyway. Um, so I want to say that William Ruto is probably experiencing lethargy in his camp, and you can't take that away from me. I am saying that the way you may feel like something is not right, but you can't put your fingers to it, I am damn sure that within William Ruto's camp, people are getting tired and they can't put their fingers on what exactly is wrong. Now, let me tell you what is wrong with the William Ruto campaign. What is wrong with William Ruto campaign is the fact that it has been a very long campaign. It has been 4 years. In fact, I can state factually that William Ruto is running a second term in 2022 because he has been working as president in Kenya on top of a cup for the last 4 years. And so the 2022 run, everybody's tired. The staff is tired. The electorate is tired. He is tired himself. And all his political players are tired. They are fatigued. And so everybody is feeling like this feels like a second term presidency. In fact, I can dare even spoil the matters and say that unless they do what I am proposing that should be done, should William Ruto win the 2022 election, he will be a one-term president because he has already passed the first term. And this will look like 3 terms. It will be too difficult to create a viable momentum to go across the bridge. So I have advice as to what he must do. So he must rebrand his politics, his matters. He must rebrand his tone. He must rebrand his messaging, and he must just revive his campaign by making sure that the spotlight is on him to the exclusion of everyone else. He must be the Donald Trump of 2016 that can do something spectacular, something that is out of this world. And I already know 2 things that he can actually do. Just that I want to be given value for my brains, you know what I mean? But there are 2 things that are not too hard for him to call the shots if he wanted to, and he can comfortably take away oxygen from all the newsroom and print media and bring it to himself with a freshness. So what else could he do? The other thing, without necessarily doing a SWOT analysis of his campaign, the SWOT analysis will look at what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses of his campaign, what are the threats, what are the opportunities. So let me look at one factor that is an incoming threat. It is a threat that is coming from a distance and it is major, but it is possible for him to be able to deal a blow to that threat and turn it into an opportunity if he does it according to my script. Now, the threat that is coming down to William Ruto is that from the very beginning, for the last 4 years, William Ruto has been dealing with Raila Amolo Odinga. And now, when his campaign is getting tired, like I've already said, in comes a fresh player who has said with his own lips that, watch me, watch my space, I am coming, and that is the president. When the president comes on the stage, you see William Ruto has been speaking for the last 4 years. So whatever the president says, it is the president's word against his. And his word is already there. There's nothing new that William Ruto will say about his dealings in government. So the president's speech, whatever the president says, whether it is reliable or unreliable, is gonna carry the day. It is the president's word against his. But he can take this threat in strides and fire the missile before the president lands. fire at the president when the president is still mid-air. I mean, politically speaking. So please don't start imagining those hogwash things. I'm saying that politically speaking, before the beast in the president is unleashed, fire at him to such an extent that you put the president on defense. Let him, rather than the president being able to take out his message, emancipate yourself from his message by targeting him and write your own narrative so that the president is responding to your narrative, and it has to be something new. The alternative is to bastardize what the president, I mean, it is not too hard to preempt what the president is going to say about this electoral cycle and whatever. So if you can go ahead of time and bastardize that, then so be it. The last thing that I want to say to my good friend William Ruto is that there's nothing really wrong with stealing, as long as the stealing is done nicely. And when I say stealing, I don't mean stealing. I mean that you can also look at your competition and ask yourself, what is this that your competition is doing which seems to be working so nicely to them or for them, and steal something from them? If he can do that, game shot. And I already know some things that he can steal from that particular equation. Now, the things that I've said are just my random thoughts. So I have not taken time to sit down and argue out a case study of William Samoei Arap Ruto. And I am willing to do that. I probably will do that, but I would want value for that input. So let's see how this goes. But trust you me, I can tell you what William Samoei Arap Ruto needs to do in order to be able to win the next election. So I can tell him how to handle all this. And the way to handle these, okay, let me just speak. Kwani Ikoneni. The way to go about this is for William Ruto to do a very simple thing that is done in football. So let us say that this is 90-minute game. A 90-minute game has already gone down the line. And so what is happening is that we now want to go to the injury, to the extra time. So we need to ask ourselves, is this going to be a sudden death game, or are we going to play 15 minutes, but whatever the case, let us see how we look at the table. How do you analyze the table? And let me be a little fast so that I don't get boring. So how do we do this? Number one, we ask ourselves how many games have been played. And the games that have been played have everything to do with the timeline. So I've already answered that one, that William Ruto has played more games. He has played for 4 years, while Azimio and Raila Odinga have only played for the last set of months. Let's call that at most 1 year. So how many games have been played? We are now analyzing. Let us analyze how many wins have we had. To analyze the wins that we have had, we have to ask ourselves, what was the total number of arguments that we had? How did we package ourselves even as the hustler nation? What were our arguments? What arguments did we front before the people? So of those arguments, how many arguments were goals? How many arguments are home? And then the law says we need to ask ourselves, how many arguments have missed? How many arguments have missed? And then we also need to look at the draws. And to look at the draws, we need to look at two things. Number one, we need to look at the arguments that we have argued. So the A part of it is we need to look at the arguments that we have argued and ask ourselves, the argument that we probably did not execute properly, or the argument just flopped altogether. People didn't buy it, or we didn't execute it properly. But then the B part of it is that we also need to ask ourselves, are there some arguments that we were presenting before the people and they were good arguments and people were resonating with them, but then we withdrew those arguments? Because I know of one argument that William Ruto campaign was putting before the people, and it was received by the people. It made Azimio extremely uncomfortable. They were talking about it, and all forms of publicity are good. There's no bad publicity. Instead, William Ruto campaign retracted that particular argument, and I want to say it was a mistake to retract that particular argument. He should just have been a Donald Trump and say, come on, buy and buy, come on, buy and buy. So that is one way of looking at that particular table. And then once we have been able to establish, like, what does the table say? So how many points do we have? You also need to look at the away matches and the home matches. The away matches simply means that you are, okay, I'm trying to say that then the William Ruto campaign needs to look at both the intrinsic and the extrinsic factors, where intrinsic factors mean that they need to ask themselves how they have fared internally as a party and as a coalition. They need to ask themselves, like, according to the strategic plan that we had in the beginning, have we implemented the strategic plan that we had? And how have we fared? How has this campaign been? How has the campaign trail been according to our strategy? And what was that strategy? So you then put the variables and the key performance indicators in place and then rate yourself. However, the total score should be much less, because you don't win an election because you had a good run of an election, but you win an election because, in addition to having a good run of an election, you had a much better run than that of your competition. So the weighting of the intrinsic performance should be about 40%, and William Ruto needs to also look at now the extrinsic factors, which is how his campaign compares to the campaign of his competition. And if we narrow down and say that they are just two formations, then William Ruto also needs to answer certain questions about the competition. So, for example, we have to establish what I would call in business the competitiveness index. Okay, so the competitive index, borrowed literally into politics, William Ruto needs to ask himself how better is he performing compared to his competition, and then look at how to retain what he has, expand what he has, and then outmaneuver his competition. So, for example, how much has UDA or Kenya Kwanza penetrated across the country? And you will need to, like, have hotspots all over the place, either whether it is region based or county based. But ask yourself, how much penetration have we had? And then ask yourself, after we have penetrated, how much portfolio have we been able to retain? And now, when we are looking at the SWOT analysis and we are trying to find out the weaknesses and the strengths, then we will be asking ourselves, what opportunities do we have for expansion, and how can we achieve that? And then we will also be looking at the places we have not performed very well and asking ourselves, how can we compensate for that? And all these put together, we will then also be trying to cast our map left, right, and center, and asking ourselves, how can we, like, maximize? What things are we doing right that we can maximize and amplify so that they can bring us more votes from the swing counties, swing regions, swing states, whatever you want to call it? And ask ourselves, what are we doing that we are not doing perfectly to the extent that it is costing our votes or is likely to cost our votes? And then eventually we will do a SWOT analysis, and the SWOT analysis are not doing it right now. We will ask ourselves, what is the strength of our campaign? What are the weaknesses of our campaigns? What are the threats of our campaign? And what opportunities are before us to be able to explore? And after all this has been put together, then the UDA fraternity will need to take a little retreat and then rebrand, repackage, bring a new life. And it is not just about retreating. Besides retreating, the William Ruto camp will need to do something drastic, something that will make all the spotlight and all the news items be about William Ruto. And he needs to fire this friendly shot before Uhuru Kenyatta fires his friendly shot. I said I'm going to put it on the table so you can ask me how exactly to implement, but it is what it is. But I have a specific plan that he can actually use. Yet I also have a specific plan for Azimio. It's all about whether they need my information or not. Whoever makes poison actually has the antidote for it. So, guys, I want to say thank you very, very much for the kind of support that you have accorded me, to all those who subscribe to my YouTube channel, Mr. Leopard TV. Thank you so, so much. I'm indeed very grateful. And those who have not, I encourage you to go to my YouTube channel, Mr. Leopard TV, and subscribe so that we can continue having these nice conversations, these in-depth kind of analysis, and we can continue having the ahead of time kind of conversations, because that's what I do. I always talk about things that are ahead of time, and you're not gonna get this kind of information anywhere else except here. So God bless you, those who are asking me what this is all about. I mean, I'm just playing my part and doing my contribution to country and to my fellow countrymen. Whichever way it leads, whatever it gives back to, that's in the hands of God. Nobody knows, but we all do our best at what we do, right? If you sweep, sweep the best. If you can do what I do, do it the best. So thank you so much. Shalom. It is Mr. Leopard, the showstopper. Thank you so much. Shalom. I love you.